You start off with a single address that you can use if you want to send, and you can give this to anybody, and they can send you funds at that address, and it will work. But I strongly encourage you to have a habit of creating a new address for either one of two things. What I do personally, and I'm a little, I take this fairly seriously, and I tend to make a new address for every single transaction. So if I buy currency, Bitseeds or otherwise, on an exchange, and I do so multiple times over the course of weeks, for example. Let's say I buy a little bit on one day, 3 or 4 days later I buy a little bit more, a week later I buy a little bit more after that. In those cases, even if I'm buying the funds from a specific exchange and the same one each time, I still use a different address each time for receiving funds. But the other way you can do it is you create one address for every individual or currency exchange or website or service or what have you, and you do at least create a separate address for each person that you're transacting with or business you're transacting with. My preference again is to do a new one for every transaction, but that is more than some people might want to do. It's kind of up to you. But the basic concept here is that there's two main benefits to this. And one benefit is that the more you create different addresses and label it clearly to say that this is, say, John Smith sending you funds, or the Rainforest Foundation sending you some from a drawing, for example. The more clearly you do that and you label it, then you can look at your transaction history and you know exactly, for bookkeeping purposes, where these funds came from. And you don't have it all coming into one place and you don't know where it's come from. This way, if you use a different address for at least each person or business or what have you, then at least you know where the funds are coming from, and you can, for bookkeeping purposes, and you can keep track of it that way. So why is it that I prefer to make a different wallet address for every transaction? Well, this is because of privacy. The very nature of Bitseeds or Bitcoin or pretty much any of the cryptocurrencies is that they have a public ledger system called a blockchain, and anyone can go and verify transactions have happened, and they can observe the transaction if they know the address. And so, not only can they do that, but they can see how much funds is in that address. And so if you use one address to receive everything, then any person you've ever shared that address with, they may not have any access to the funds in the same way that if you give out your credit card number, someone can basically spend your money for you. That is not a concern here, because it's much more secure with this the system that is used for cryptocurrency, where you control a private key and then you're giving out a public key, which is that address, but that doesn't give control. It does, however, give them access to view what's in that balance, what balance is there, and what has been sent to that address and what has been sent from that address somewhere else. And they can observe that publicly. Anyone can do that through a website. So if you use a different address for every transaction, then anybody you share that address with, they can only see what they've sent you, and in fact they can only even see what they've sent you in that transaction. And so it does afford you a greater level of privacy. So how much you want to do this is up to you, but that's the basic idea.